Well, hello. It is the 11th of August 2024 and it is 18:21 in the evening, Tugum time, Queensland, Australia. Now, Yah has impressed me to remind everybody about Muhammad's letter to the monks at St. Catherine's Monastery on Mount Sinai, written in 628 AD. Now, what is extraordinary is this letter. It wasn't written by Muhammad himself because he was actually illiterate at the time. It was written by others and witnessed. There were 33 witnesses, and it was Muhammad's handprint that this is what he wanted to say that was communicated to the charter of rights. And it was a covenant that Muhammad made with Christians. Now, considering all of the upheaval around the world, all part of this crumbling of this particular world, the falling away, the exposure, the emperor has no clothes within leaders of the nations, Yah wants this reiterated. So I'll take us over to the document and the English translation of it, and then I'll touch briefly on how it was so effective, used by the Supreme Court of Pakistan to dismiss a case of blasphemy against a simple Christian Pakistani woman who in 2009 was working in a field picking berries. The women that were with her, actually her biological sisters, but they were Muslim, she was Christian. And they expressed thirst. She said, well, I'll go and get some water. And she made the horrific mistake of dipping into that water with a cup that was beside the well where she drew the water, and drank that water from that cup. And they, as Muslim women, condemned her as a Christian and refused to drink the water from the hand of a Christian. Now, she in return got vexed and spoke some, her own description, harsh or hard words to these sisters of hers. And she just challenged them. So the original words were something like, so, you know, I should become like you to drink rather than you become like me and believe what I believe. It was that kind of an exchange. The exchange in no way brought up the name of Muhammad. And as a result of this heated exchange, false testimony was brought against her. She was accused and charged with blasphemy for blaspheming the name of Muhammad and the Holy Quran. It was all a lie, but she was imprisoned for about 9 years. And the judge, by the time it got to the Supreme Court of Pakistan, he actually overturned it all. A 56-page document, I've read most of it. We're not going to do that, but I'll put the link in there. You can download it yourself, read it, because he referred back to this original letter written by Muhammad, his covenant with the Christians. And the judge, in his so reasonable, logical, and wisdom, turned about the charge of blasphemy. He overturned the charges against her and overturned the death sentence because, based upon the lack of evidence and the twisted testimony of all the witnesses involved, including these women, he came to the conclusion that it was they, the Muslim, who had committed blasphemy against their holy prophet and the Quran. Because remember, Christians regard all prophets, and although they do regard Jesus as a prophet, Isa as a prophet, they have as much regard for Isa as they do for their prophet in Muhammad. He overturned it all and came to the conclusion it was the Muslim women who committed blasphemy against their prophet for coming against his writings and teachings and that of the Quran, against this Christian woman who in their religion of Islam they do tolerate and they respect the religion of all. Now, of course, it didn't go well in Pakistan because the extremists, it's always the extremists who, these are the demonically controlled extremists in every religion that cause trouble. And it caused so much trouble in Pakistan for such a long time. They wanted her death. She finally was able to leave the country in May of 2019 and she went to Canada. They extended refuge to her, so did Australia, so did Italy. The USA didn't under Trump. But the point is that this document, just like in Christum Credunt, that Pope Benedict wrote announcing to the world in 2013 that the Christ was here in the person of Brian Leonard Golightly-Marshall, just as that document alone has shut down courts in Australia and dismissed cases against young offenders. When the magistrate or the judge has read the document, case dismissed. So with this case, her name is Noreen Aisha Bibi. It's truly remarkable. She kept faith all along and she just said that I knew I would eventually be released. But the 9 years that she spent in a Pakistani cell on death row, as you can imagine, would be horrific. Her family members were threatened and other members of the judiciary were actually assassinated. They who were upholding their Holy Prophet Muhammad's writings and teachings regarding Christians and any person of faith. So let's take a look at that now. We'll go first to the actual document. I'll read it in English and then we'll just go through screen capturing the wiki articles and meeting Bibi, Asia Bibi herself. Alright, so many of you remember this already. This is, I'll just read, this is a message from Muhammad ibn Abdullah as a covenant to those who adopt Christianity near and far. We are with them. Verily, I, the servants, the helpers, and my followers defend them, because Christians are my citizens, and by Allah, I hold out against anything that displeases them. No compulsion is to be on them, neither are their judges to be removed from their jobs, nor their monks from their monasteries. No one is to destroy a house of their religion, or to damage it, or to carry anything from it to the Muslims' houses. Should anyone take any of these, he would spoil God's covenant and disobey his prophet. Verily, they are my allies, and have my secure charter against all that they hate. No one is to force them to travel or to oblige them to fight. The Muslims are to fight for them. If a female Christian is married to a Muslim, it is not to take place without her approval. She is not to be prevented from visiting her church to pray. Their churches are to be respected. They are neither to be prevented from repairing them, nor the sacredness of their covenants. no one of the nation of Muslims is to disobey the covenant till the last day, meaning the end of the world. This Charter of Privileges has been honoured and faithfully applied by Muslims throughout the centuries in all lands they ruled. Now, just going back to our time in Egypt, we were received by Muslims, Yah as the Christ. And they had just one question: was Jesus God? Yes. The second, and yes, he was crucified. And he did rise again. That is what the Shroud of Turin is all about. And it's the photograph. So let's take a look at the case against Asia Bibi and the link to the document. Based upon what I just read, the judge acquitted all charges against, and he actually turned it around because it was the Muslims themselves who had violated the teachings of their holy prophet, and the Quran. They were the ones in error by bringing this charge of blasphemy. They were the ones that were blaspheming their prophet. It's pretty astonishing. There's probably a movie about it. There's a book. Let's see, over here on Wiki. All right, here's the Wiki profile. I'll put these links in the description. You know, when you get time, go through it and read it. It is truly astonishing. And here you see transcript, the judgment. That's what I downloaded. You can download the judgment by the judge. That was October, the end of October 2018, when he overturned it all. But it still took time for her to be able to leave the country. It caused such an uproar that the Prime Minister at the time, Imran Khan, although he agreed and he was the one coming out against the rioting, etc., he made a deal with the TPL party at the time, who really wanted her, you know, they were the ones rioting against her sentence and charges being overturned. But it was a case of political having to appease in order for the final judgment to come down. And then she was allowed to leave the country, and she got out by the skin of her teeth. Her family had already got out to safety in Canada, and she met them there. But 60 people, incited by accusations of over 60 people, has been blamed for dozens of communal attacks that have taken place against religious minorities on the pretext of blasphemy. Many people have died in these accusations, and the judgment by the righteous Muslim judge, going back to that particular document, is truly, it's easy reading, so simple. I wish, you know, Western law should be based upon the simplicity of their laws, based upon Muhammad's original writings. Right, this is the book that ended up, there's a memoir, Sentenced to Death Over a Cup of Water. That's what it was all about, a cup of water. I'll just read this. In June 2009, a Pakistani mother of 5, Asia Bibi, was out picking fruit in the fields. At midday, she went to the nearest well, picked up a cup and took a drink of cool water, and then offered it to another woman. Suddenly, one of her fellow workers cried out that the water belonged to Muslim women, and that Bibi, who is Christian, and these were her sisters, her biological sisters, had contaminated it. Blasphemy, someone shouted, a crime punishable by death in Pakistan. In that instant, with one word, Bibi's fate was sealed. First attacked by a mob, Bibi was then thrown into prison and sentenced to be hanged. Since that day, Asia Bibi has been held in appalling conditions. So this book was actually released before all of the appeals were in, and then the final judgment in 2018 at the end. This is the final judgment handed down, and 56 pages. It's really intriguing, but easy reading. It's not like Western court documents. He first sets out the pretext on why it is that they run their courts and rule on laws according to their own scriptures. So he's setting it all up really to hang the Muslims themselves who brought these false charges of blasphemy against Asia Bibi. So it's worth going through to understand what it is to be truly. And Yah admired Muhammad. Now, of course, too, there is, within the writings of the Quran, we know full well there's that Roman Catholic influence, and clearly Muhammad himself was influenced by Roman Catholicism. That's okay, because he was convinced and wrote to the Negus of Abyssinia that Jesus was the word of Allah, breathed into the womb of the pure Maryam. So there's a great deal of respect there. And again, in true Islam, as we found in talking with everybody that we did, being with them in Egypt for the time that we were, it became apparent that the people themselves, they know who the enemy is, the one that they know who the enemy is. But Christians are their brothers and sisters. This is the testimony of Asia. She writes just very simply. She tells it the way it is, whereas all the other witnesses, it took 5 days to raise the complaint. And based on precedent, the judge points out that to raise the complaint after even 1 hour, there's something wrong. You're supposed to bring the complaint immediately, but it took them 5 days to kind of structure the complaint. So he pulls it all to pieces based upon what is obvious to him and the Holy Quran, the teachings of Muhammad. And in the end, he refers to the letter written to the monks at St. Catherine's on Mount Sinai. And it's, page 52. He overturns it all. It is truly astonishing. Here is the, you can download this and scroll through it yourself. You're educating yourself. And here it is here. This case had, the judge writes that this case had violated a covenant of the Holy Prophet Muhammad with those professing the Christian faith. And he refers to the book written, The Covenants of the Prophet Muhammad with the Christians of the World by John A. Morrow. In 2013, when we were communicating with Pope Benedict, he announced March the 12th, the first time, 2013. It's referred to and reproduced many covenants entered into by the Holy Prophet with people of the Christian faith, and one of such covenants is called the Covenant of the Prophet. So it is there. There's the covenant again that we've already read. And it appears that after an altercation taking place in the field of Falsa, a feast of falsehood had followed, and the Muslim members of the complainant party, led by Qari Muhammad Salem, complainant, had paid little heed to the following command of Almighty Allah in the Holy Quran. It's all about justice, and it's all about before, as witness to Allah, even as against yourselves, your parents, your kin, and whether it be against rich or poor, for Allah can best protect both. follow not the lusts of your hearts, which is to do evil, lest ye swerve. And if ye distort justice or decline to do justice, verily Allah is well acquainted with all that ye do. So he goes on, blasphemy is a serious offence, but the insult of the appellant, which is Asia, religion and religious sensibilities by the complainant party, and then mixing truth with falsehood in the name of the prophet, was also not short of being blasphemous. It is ironical that in the Arabic language the appellant's name Asia means sinful, but in the circumstances of the present case she appears to be a person, in the words of Shakespeare's King Lear, more sinned against than sinning. And in conversation with our messenger just this last week, she and her husband were to see on Friday night, I think it was, Shakespeare's King Lear. So there is the judge. This appeal is therefore allowed. The conviction and sentence of the appellant recorded and upheld by the lower courts are set aside, and she is acquitted of the charge. By extending the benefit of doubt to her, she shall be released from the jail forthwith, if not required to be detained in connection with any other case. So, as within Christum Credunt, in the Muslim world, it is a legal and binding document, just as we have presented in Christum Credunt along with the declaration and notice of claim to different courts in this country. And we know the effect that they have. The Lismore court itself shut down, and this was before the apostolic letter was written. That was based upon the notice of claim, declaration and notice of claim. Then coupled with this apostolic letter in 2017, a young man's case was dismissed entirely. In other cases, fees have been reduced once the lawyers have found out. In the case of these documents have been sent to the Chief Justices of the New South Wales judicial system. They've been sent to the ICC in The Hague. It's gone everywhere. Many of you know the work that I personally have done, you yourselves have done, but I personally have made sure that every authority around the planet has had these documents, so that none has an excuse. Absolutely no one has an excuse in authority. What is it? Ignorance is not bliss. Everybody has been informed since 2013. And of course, the Antichrist being Francis itself. And of course, as a spirit, it's there in many who proclaim, "Oh Lord, Lord, did I not do this in your name?" No, I don't know you. All right, so yes, back to Asia. I want to get the book and read. There she is. I just saw something fairly, how is it here? Independent, deja vu. Oh yeah, it still goes on. That was the party, the TLP, Imran Khan. Yes, it had a monumental effect on Pakistan and how they ruled thereafter. They talk about the perseverance of Bibi. So, right, 25 minutes. All right, do the research. I'll put the links below and go and have a look. It really is astonishing and educating, enlightening. And yes, it doesn't matter where the teachings came from. They are always used his enemy to bring about his will. So the spread of Islam through the teachings of Roman Catholics, it doesn't matter. The point is that these original documents, they are where the authority, and you can see all these years later that the Pakistani Supreme Court, a righteous man, released Christian Asia Bibi and overturned her death sentence upon that marvellous letter that Muhammad wrote as a covenant and a charter looking out for Christians.